everyone, it's little Storyteller Lee, 你小傻講古. Hi from sunny Singapore, and welcome to episode 2 of my guide to getting hired. These are extremely unusual times. I mean, normally, I would never advocate considering 5 or 6 different job functions simultaneously when planning a career move. I think all of you would agree it's probably crazy in whatever context that you've been in. Neither would I support looking at upwards, sideways, and downward moves all at the same time. We're used to times of stability. And when things are stable, focus is rewarded. But the only reason why I believe that in these times we have to consider as many different options as possible is because we are still in a test and learn stage with agentic AI, and that's the case for the entire business world. 2025 was chaos because we didn't know which tasks, which platforms, which processes are going to be automated with AI and what is going to be automated first. I don't think we still have definitive answers here. But the world spent most of 2025, especially in the fourth quarter, speculating about which jobs are at risk versus which ones are safe. Well, I think the conclusion we're getting at the end of the year is no jobs are really safe. That's because every job is a bundle of tasks. And what AI does is it not only automates tasks, but it also regroups them. And that means job descriptions are going to have to change. Agents will automate tasks, but in addition, they are going to change the way that tasks are bundled together. And because a job function is a bundle of tasks, that means that you have a certain amount of domain knowledge, but the things that you're going to do to apply it could be different when an AI agent takes over certain processes. Some of these processes may require quite a bit of human skill, which is why those of us who feel like experts doing our work may suddenly get that ego hit of not feeling like experts anymore. Going into 2026, one of the things you want to consider is whether you feel confident that you can ride multiple technology cycles on whichever path you choose. Some of us are going to have to go down to mid or junior levels in order to start again in another discipline, possibly an adjacent discipline. And if you need to do that, think about which path will complement the skills that you already have in order that you can strengthen your total value in the long term. Today, I'm going to talk about the various paths that I've considered, and bearing in mind that this is still a journey, I'll talk about the strategic advantages and vulnerabilities of each of these, and how I eventually decided which are the ones that I'll pursue for now, and when I decided to stop the ones that I've dropped. The specific choices on each of your plates is going to be different. But my goal is that by sharing this thought process, I hope to create a template that everyone can follow in order to consider which routes you want to branch off as all of our jobs get reshaped with AI. Remember, you want to consider and explore a wide range of choices, but when one takes off, that's when it's time to focus and narrow down. Without further ado, I'll go into the various options that I've been considering. Option number 1 for me was marketing ops or marketing technology. If I were to branch off into this option, I would need to start all over again. I'd go from a staff level into a mid-level as a marketing operations product manager or marketing technology manager. This would be a full-time role that brings me back to the pay grade and salary from my early years at Expedia, or it could be a contract position at rates slightly below that. That would mean a 40 to 50% pay setback in the beginning, as well as a 2-rung title drop. But why would I consider that strategic? Because as AI makes more data available at bigger volume, the ways that we use it in marketing might evolve, leading to the adoption of different marketing technology platforms and solutions over time. My previous experience as a power user of web analytics and marketing analytics databases to make decisions that optimize performance marketing and thus the associated P&L will mean that I can design systems for better usability, scalability, and insights right from the very start. But where are the vulnerabilities? At mid-level, I'm going to own the implementation of the systems, but I might not necessarily own the technology strategy. You get resilient in this field when you drive the decisions of when to switch from one technology to another and influence choices on what solutions to build and what to buy. So for me to be able to choose this path and stake in it, I'd need to choose an org where I'm the person number one who sets up the marketing technology from scratch. And regardless of what my title or pay is in the beginning, I get to grow along with the org. Otherwise, if I'm just implementing and plugging in a specific platform or solution, I would risk becoming obsolete along with it. Option number 2 for me was to continue with performance marketing. This for me would have been job hugging. But when I chose to walk away from my full-time job, that was when job hugging ceased to be an option for me, and I knew it. It was easy for me to eliminate this option because my goal was to develop the scope and the range that can keep me on track towards director plus levels of responsibility in the future, even if those responsibilities come from opportunities that I have to give myself. What level would I be at if I moved companies and stayed in performance marketing? I would, of course, want to fight at least for senior, but quite honestly, I think most new companies would just simply send me right down to mid. Pure campaign management roles in agencies or at smaller companies don't need to be at senior or staff levels. This is because they are less analytically intensive, with less spend involved, and also with the shift towards automated bidding tools like Performance Max and Advantage Plus bidding, there really isn't that much need for complexity on the bidding side. Rather, the future of paid social is about content strategy at scale and fluency in social media platforms. That means my competitors for such roles would be people in Gen Z who are very social media savvy. Even at the senior level, my pay in my next job in paid social would probably get slashed by 50%. And if I went back down to mid, my pay would be about a third of what I used to earn. So for me, this was a clear walk away because taking a steep title and pay cut, it may be necessary to start again, but starting again in a field that I've already worked in for 10 years and mastered to a certain degree would signal skill regression. So it would probably keep me in a paying job for a little bit longer, but in the long term, it's going to close doors. Option number 3 for me was marketing capital allocation. Driving the decisions to allocate the funds is something that's very necessary and very exciting during this stage of AI adoption. And predictive analytics is an area that I've been working adjacently to for the last 10 years or so. I've been using predictive modeling to optimize marketing spend and to turn around ROI in 3 different contexts spanning over the last 7 years. I've also partnered with finance in accounting for, predicting, and adapting marketing spend in multi-channel paid media portfolios, owning budgets of up to $35 million US. I haven't yet owned a full departmental budget, so that might be a small stretch. And so such a role is likely to be either a lateral or a small step up for me. The pay range in the roles that I've been applying for would range from 20% below my last earned pay to about 10% above. I wasn't drawn to such roles necessarily because of the pay and title. In fact, I would be happy to take a 20% pay cut and a lateral title. But I feel that this is the synergies and resilience that I need. It's really exciting to be watching the market today because Gen AI could really reshape how people interact with the internet and buy stuff. And that means any internet-based consumer-facing businesses need to be super agile in terms of how they reallocate their marketing spend in order to follow with dollars to wherever the consumer is going. Furthermore, entirely new digital marketing channels may emerge altogether. But if I'll be honest, full-time roles in this area are likely to be the longest shot for me, and that's why I've been applying to some roles, but I've seen zero success so far. I haven't personally optimized with media mix modeling, even though I understand the concepts, because the companies I was in used last touch attribution, which is getting out of vogue. It's also really hard to move up in a risk-averse job market when there's qualified senior candidates available at every level. This shift would have been very attainable, and it would have made a ton of sense in a stable market, and especially if the economy is bullish. But in this market, it's really hard to pull off if I don't have an in-house sponsor in the company who has validated my adjacent work and is able to vouch that I can make that leap. Option number 4 is freelance consultancy and fractional CMO work. Originally, when I quit my full-time job, this was the area which I thought I could jump into almost seamlessly. I was planning to offer a dual package where I could give high-level consultancy on paid media ROAS optimizations while doing tactical work in SEO and outbound marketing at lower rates. I thought this would be the best way to strategically grow my range so I could qualify for marketing director roles in 12 to 18 months because I'd have a full portfolio of results in both paid and non-paid marketing. Pay-wise, I would take a cut because my work would be more irregular, and on an hourly basis, I would have to charge lower rates for the channels where I have less experience in. But I chose this route because it would max my learning. I'm on a bit of a detour now because I realized that learning how to create and to optimize agentic AI workflows is going to enable me to create solutions that could endure better, that would be more efficient, resilient, and also faster in execution. So I still need to do some learning and repackage my value proposition, my portfolio, and my positioning after I've mastered the nuts and bolts of agentic AI building. Option number 5 is content creation, podcasting, and writing. This is complementary to option number 4, and a lot of people with portfolio careers will practice a little bit of both. Because I wasn't a VP level or C-level executive before I went freelance, I don't have the kind of name recognition that a typical thought leader may have, but I have unique perspectives from having been deep in government and in tech, being hands-on on the ground while achieving staff-level seniority in the problems that I've solved with both. That's why I've been super aggressive in building up my body of content on LinkedIn and on Substack. I want to show that even though my depth isn't evident in titles, there's plenty that I know, and to earn trust and credibility through contributing, amplifying, and analyzing what I think is the truth in this field at this time. I didn't plan to be a work futurist when I started on this journey, only a digital marketing leader with multi-channel and multidisciplinary capabilities. But the work found me after I read Sangeet Paul Chowdhury's Reshuffle and discovered my ability to immediately apply his framework to explain and make sense of the changes to my industry and to career paths, not just for me, but my compatriots in these fields. For me, I didn't start out saying that I want to write, but when you have a viewpoint, that's when you want to communicate it and evangelize it, and that's what got me into writing. And writing isn't new to me. I've processed social political observations in this way ever since I started on the concept of my first Jane Austen fanfic 20 years ago in 2006. But to know if I'll get any credibility at all as a serious writer, I have to prove my ability to work with platform algorithms and create an audience for my work. That's why I started a daily blitz on LinkedIn starting from October, and only after I succeeded with a post that went viral, which for me means getting more than 100 engagements and 5-digit impression counts, did I decide to fully abandon my options 1 and 2 and commit full steam into options 4 and 5. Option number 6 for me is academia and teaching. This is an offshoot of option number 5. I want to legitimize what I'm doing to pull apart the economic and industry trends that are shaping careers in tech and to deep dive into their impact on the tech labor market. As an independent industry watcher, I would look really creepy if I collected too much empirical data. It would effectively mean stalking companies, maybe stalking the trajectories of people, and drawing out patterns from all of these. So I figured that joining academia, that might be the only way I could legitimately carry out longitudinal studies of these technology, economic, and labor trends that are shaping our situation today and causing massive swings in the demand as well as the supply of what I'm calling auxiliary professionals in the digital industry. When I say auxiliary, and this is a term that I'm coining from scratch, I'm thinking about the types of jobs where people have extremely technical and specialized qualifications, but they are still not technical enough to contribute towards innovation in the industry. So these are people like data analysts, masters and bootcamp level data scientists, performance marketeers, and software engineers up to senior level. I'm interested in doing this precisely because I and many people that I know have invested huge amounts of time and money into master's level education, and versus the lifespan of the economic and societal contribution that someone can achieve from them, I think the expectations we were sold 20 years ago are very different from the reality that's playing out today. Now, of all of the pivots that I've discussed thus far, I suppose you're going to say this one is probably the most far-fetched of all of them. And I agree. It's going to be hard to pull off because PhDs are structured for a linear progression from bachelor's and master's into a lifetime of academia. So there's going to be a mismatch in terms of age, in terms of background, in terms of even having academic network who has recent examples of my work to endorse me for a PhD application. And I'm putting formal PhD work on a wait-and-see mode because I believe that ultimately the market is about supply and demand. Academic institutions may see that there's a lot of subject matter experts that they have already, and a lot of senior execs have taken roles as adjuncts, lecturers, and faculty. So it might be possible that this is a space where I'm not really needed. I also need to consider whether what I'm interested to dig and learn more in fits into universities' existing research portfolios. But there are low risk and small scale ways of starting to work on these. I can validate whether I'm suitable for teaching in the first place by creating a couple of small courses and putting them on Teachable and iterating into what scales and resonates. I can also continue to build my portfolio of industry insights on Substack and on LinkedIn and see if anyone pings me to say, hey, let's come together and take these further. And finally, option number 7 ties in with Singapore's push for the care economy, and that is community volunteering and social enterprise. Since Secondary 4, which translates into 10th grade in Western systems, I've done formal and informal volunteering in multiple sectors. I started with intellectually disabled kids and adults, moved on to at-risk youth in my 20s. In the pandemic, I did mask making at Volume, and I'm currently serving on the board of my homeowners association. My goal all along was that when I retired, which I thought meant that when I'm 55, I would retire from a full-time corporate job, would be that I would do a mix of grant donations as well as hands-on volunteering work in my community. And I was thinking that someday I'll use part of my family funds to also fund myself to start a social enterprise, but that this would happen through discovery from what I do on the ground. So I wasn't really married to any one idea because I know that could change depending on what I see and what ideas I get during ground up execution. And I think this is still very much on the cards. It might happen at an earlier age. So to sum up, What do I think is my framework for considering career transition paths? First of all, think about how each option ties in with your existing experience and about how that frames the story of the value that you bring, both today and in 5 years' time. Second, have realistic expectations about supply, demand, and your competition in whatever path that you decide to choose. Third, design and conduct some low-risk tests, such as applying for a few roles or creating some content or networking with people in that area. And number 4, when some paths start to get more traction than others, that's time when you should start to focus. So you want to try a wide range of things, invest a little bit of time in each, but once you decide to focus all out into one area, that's time that you would probably discard some paths. Next week, I'm going to talk about upskilling and the expectations you might want to have on ROI from training and education. Stay tuned and see you next time. Merry Christmas!